Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. If you are new here, my name is Heather. My neighbor keeps cows. And my husband Levi and I homestead with our 4 kids on just over 9 acres in southwestern Kentucky. We have been homesteading here for about 5 years. It was actually the summer of 2019 when I first moved here with our 4 kids without all of our stuff. It's kind of a long story. My husband used to be in the military, and we grew our first batch of meat chickens that year, and I grew my very first garden of my own, and that was not that long ago. It feels like forever because so much has happened in the world since 2019. That feels like a completely different era, but we're here now. And I have a question that I pulled from our Q&A question call. My husband and I are gonna sit down and record all of the answers to all the other questions that we got, but some questions that we get definitely require whole video answers. So I have a question from Maggie that is a very good one. It's something that I've wanted to talk about, but never really had the reason to talk about much, but I've got a reason today. What are your thoughts on the trendiness or aesthetic of homesteading? Did you grow up on a homestead? What drew you to homesteading and what keeps you doing it? So that's obviously 3 separate questions. We're going to go through all of that. But the first part of this question is really what hit me. What are your thoughts on the trendiness and aesthetic of homesteading? And I'm pretty sure that Maggie is referring to everything that you're gonna see on social media regarding homesteading. All of the beautiful harvest baskets, all of the gorgeous, lush, rolling hills and beautiful, healthy chickens out in the yard, gorgeous baskets of eggs that have absolutely 0 poop on them and things like that. I do have an opinion on that, and I would really like to talk about that with you. And I think that it's going to be different than the opinion that you're used to hearing on social media lately. For some reason, there's been a huge influx of creators kind of trash talking other creators in this space, and I don't think that that's really appropriate. YouTube is huge, social media is huge, the world is huge. Really, social media is just a mirror of the actual physical world that we live in, although there are ways to alter it. I think all of us know that the things that are put on social media are put up there by a person who wants you to see a certain image. Like, we all know that, right? What you see on social media is something that has been edited and prepared for you to see. I guess as long as it's not, I don't know, a third-party candid, I don't know thing. I'd say in most cases on places like YouTube and Instagram. Those are the only 2 platforms that I have, so that's really all I can speak on. But a lot of people will say that, you know, other homesteaders, especially bigger channels, don't show the difficult side of homesteading because this life, many of you know, is a lot harder than it appears to be. I think one of the things going against content creators on social media is that we have a very short window of time to hold attention. And when you have that short window of time where you can get what you want to get across, why wouldn't you want to show the most beautiful things? I think that a lot of people, they have their reasons for having their channels or having their presence on social media, and many of them, their sole purpose is to bring joy. They just want to show the beautiful things because they want to be that light when the whole world is chaos right now, and it's kind of around every turn there's always something negative. I honestly appreciate being able to see these beautiful things, even though I know there's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of failure behind that. It's beautiful to see those successes and be able to celebrate that with those creators. I'm the kind of person who I do not take anything at face value. If you tell me something, I'm not necessarily just gonna believe it because you told it to me. I'm gonna have to do research and look into it myself, and I'm going to base my own opinions off of that. It might just be of my personality, but I think if anybody is getting into homesteading and they base what they think is gonna exist off of social media, off of Instagram, they think that they're always gonna have clean eggs and that they're never gonna have a blemish on their tomatoes. I think that that's a them problem. That's a lack of awareness. I feel like it's not the social media persona's responsibility to show you that it is hard. It's really great. Personally, I'm a viewer of social media, of YouTube, as well as a content creator. I personally like to see the struggles that other people go through because I know that I'm going to be experiencing those things on my farm, or I'm currently experiencing them. And to see the others other people, often more experienced than me, go through something like that, there's a comfort there that, you know, we're all in this together, we're all having a hard time. And very often I am able to learn and glean from that experience of that other creator in order to improve my situation here on my farm, or it just at least helps me know what to expect. It's really great when content creators have the courage to put that out there, and I don't think that it's necessarily required that everybody who shows their homesteading life on social media have to show everything, and I'm gonna explain why. Number one, I kind of touched on it before, sometimes that's just not the goal. Sometimes it's just to bring light and joy and you just want to show the beauty side of things. As a content creator, I have seen and I understand that there are some things that just do better than others on social media. So if your goal with your social media is to have a wide reach and to make a good amount of income, honestly, sometimes showing the hard side of things just doesn't do well. The truth of the matter is people usually don't click on a video where you have a sick chicken and the thing dies, and you have to figure out what to do with the carcass afterwards. Those things just do not get the same amount of clicks as something like a garden tour with a big beautiful harvest and lots of lush greenery in the background. Those are clicked on way more. So a lot of content creators just put out what is more well accepted to the masses. So sometimes showing the hard things, especially as your channel grows, gets to be where you just get a lot of opinions, a lot, like imagine thousands of opinions. It's hard enough to deal with the hard thing that you have to deal with on your farm by yourself or with your family. It's another thing to have a ton of opinions come at you regarding that thing. There are definitely people that have very good intentions with trying to help out when things go wrong, and I have learned a lot. We've gotten a lot of different criticisms and different pieces of advice that have definitely helped us out here on the farm, but sometimes it's just not worth sharing, to be honest. Sometimes you've had all you can do to manage it with yourself here, that you just don't need other opinions. And I think that that's a lot of the reason why you don't see every last little hard thing on everybody's farm. I mean, I have videos that are 2-3 years old that I'm still getting told that I'm a bad mom and that I'm a bad homesteader from those videos that are that old, and it can wear on you. Now, when you choose to put your life on social media, you are signing up for that, but it doesn't necessarily make it something that's always easy to stomach. I have my days where I can handle it pretty well, and then I have bad days, I think, like we all do. We are just humans with a camera after all. Is that helpful necessarily to the homesteader, the brand new homesteader, or the aspiring homesteader who is trying to learn about this life? Not necessarily, but it's not necessarily that content creator's responsibility to mentor you in that way. If you want to find a mentor, they're out there. There are plenty of people on, you know, social media and in your communities that want to hold your hand through this, but it's not any one person's responsibility just because they make videos for social media to teach you literally everything about it, to including the hard things. So I want you guys to remember that what anyone chooses to put on social media is their choice to put on social media, and you shouldn't use what they post as an excuse for your own failures on the farm. The truth is, we all fail, and we all have hard things that we deal with, and we have something that we have never had to deal with here on the farm yet that we're going to discuss later. It's an extremely hard thing to think about and to execute here. I personally think it's every viewer's responsibility to take what they see on social media and be critical about it. Think about is this real? And don't just go into homesteading or any endeavor blindly. And if you start homesteading and start bringing in muddy, dirty eggs and you're wondering why, it's not the content creator's fault that didn't show you muddy eggs. I am extremely welcoming to anybody who wants to learn how to homestead, who has a heart for this life. Truthfully, what I think a lot of creators try to convey with their presence on social media is the real core heart feelings that come with this life. It is an incredibly rewarding life. It's incredibly hard work, but we can walk into a space with disease and pest infestation and mold, and the place that we're sitting in right now, my garden is really not doing that great this year. I'm pulling in some pretty harvests, but for the size of the space that I am growing in this year, my harvests are puny. Last year I was harvesting wagonfuls of gorgeous produce, but this year it's just not that case. However, I still see a ton of beauty in here, and social media and making videos, it's an art form. And so if I'm trying to get you to understand something, to feel something, sometimes I have to do that visually by showing you pretty things, because even though there's a bunch of disease and there's a bunch of pests and things are going wrong, there's still such a beauty about it, and I want you to be able to feel that. So sometimes it's hard to convey that while also showing you the pests and disease and mold and whatever else. So I fully support anybody who wants to get into homesteading, who wants to start a garden. If you want to grow a garden because you want to grow something pretty, do it. Sometimes you're going to get some ugly things. Sometimes it doesn't work out. I think it just takes persistence, and I don't think it takes a lot of digging on social media to figure that out. Because like I said, we're here. There are people that show the hard things. There are people that will show you solutions to the problems that you can have in a garden or on a homestead. It's just not everybody's goal with their channel, so that's not always shown. And I'm not mad at anybody about that, because especially as your channel grows on social media, the more negative that you show, even if it's just part of life, the harder the criticism is. And that's when we get into the heaviness that we have as part of this video. Oh, I think I scared it. It ran away. There was a ladybug larva here. Oh, it's right there. Ta-da! We do have them in here. I told you. There's just a lot of aphids too. So that's not what I was going to talk about. So we have quite a few dairy goats on our farm. It's somewhere between 25 and 30. I count them, and then I sell some, and then I buy some, and I have to count again. But usually it's around 25 to 30 at any given time. I try to go into winter with less of them because we have to feed out hay and things, and it's just more expensive to keep them over winter. So we mainly have the dairy goats for their milk, but we also have really grown to love their meat. And so when you get into homesteading and you feel like you want a dairy animal, a lot of people will choose cows. That is everybody's choice. I don't want a cow because they are huge animals that put out a lot of milk all at once, and I have enough to try to deal with the 3 gallons of milk that we sometimes bring in. Right now I'm bringing in just over a gallon of milk a day, and that's manageable. I'm only milking 3 goats once a day right now. But when you have a dairy animal, in order to bring them into milk, they have to have babies. And then you need to figure out what to do with those babies. Now, a lot of people are finding, especially lately, now that the homesteading trend is kind of a little bit on the downhill with COVID, a lot of people were trying to grow a lot of their own food, and now that's sort of waning off. So it's harder to sell things like baby goats nowadays, and a lot of markets are saturated, which kind of just comes with it. And so I wanted to impress upon you, if you've not been here on the channel before and seen me talk about this, goat meat is so good. It's like a cross between beef and pork. It's got a very lovely fat on it that's a lot like pork fat. So succulent, so delicious. So many of the little bucklings that are born here on our farm are put in the freezer, and because they're smaller animals, we can easily process them here. You process them just like a deer, and we're able to do all of that on farm and not have any outside inputs. So our goat meat is essentially free because the kids are born in the spring, they grow out over the summer on grass and their mama's milk, and then they're butchered in the fall, a lot of them. There's one goat, I'm looking at him right now, and I'm gonna try to not cry, and I want you to know that it is hard. It's never easy. You don't ever, if somebody has a very easy time killing anything living, you should worry about them. So we recently just bought in a few goats, and the farm that I bought them from is called Bella Rosa Estates, and the way that Samara runs things down there, she's in Georgia, is really, actually, I love it. She won't sell any animal as a breeder if she wouldn't use them as a breeder herself in her program. That is her quality standard. And as someone who purchases animals that I want to be of quality, that I would love to improve the quality of stock that I have here on my farm, I appreciate that. And I feel like I would like to adopt that here on my farm. So I've got I'm working on my herd. I mainly just have them for dairy, but I also am trying to create quality animals. We've started combining our Nigerian dwarves with our La Manchas to create the best of both worlds, the mini La Mancha. I love them. We've only had one of them give birth so far because I've just started to get into this, and the babies that we had born last year, many of them were not big enough to breed that same fall, and so I only got to breed one, and that was Breezy. And Breezy came into milk, and I really like most of what her udder has to offer, but as far as breeding stock, her bucklings are probably not worth that. Her udder sits really low. It has a lot of capacity, and it has a lot of softness, but for the longevity of an udder, you really want it to be like kind of, they call it socked on, just sucked right to the body with lots of nice attachments so that the doe doesn't have problems later on, so her babies can nurse well. So I wasn't planning on selling this buckling anyway. He was going to go to the freezer. We named him Gopher and Elf just because of how their ears are. So in order to get sweet tasting meat, a meat that doesn't taste musky or goaty, we will band our boys at around 8 to 12 weeks. We've got some boys that haven't been banded yet that are almost about 5 months old that I need to get a hold of pretty soon. The general rule of thumb is before butchering, you want to butcher them at least 1 month per year of age prior to their butcher date. I'll try to make more sense of what I just said. So let's say you have an animal who is a year or less old. You want to make sure that you band them a month before their butcher date. If you've got a buck that's about 3 years old, you want to band him 3 months before his butcher date. And that just allows all of the hormones to leave the body so that the meat tastes better. We have a buckling, Gopher. When I went to band him, he only had 1 testicle descend. I've never seen that. I have not seen that yet. And so I decided, okay, I gotta wean him. He's 8 weeks old. I had little goats in the barn like Winnie that were older than him that I didn't want to accidentally become bred way too young. And so I pulled him, and I've been waiting and I've been waiting and I've been waiting, and he still has only 1 testicle descended. I've tried to bring it down. There's ways that you can sort of try to work it down in order to band him and then just let him live out the rest of the summer here, but he still has 1 of them tucked up. And we're sort of on a time crunch with him because I can't do much with him the way that he is. I can't sell him as a breeder, not only for the quality of his mom's udder, but that kind of thing can be something that's genetic, that propensity to not descend both testicles. So that's a flaw that I don't want to pass on to anybody else. Plus, he's like halfway infertile. They say that the one that remains in the body is too warm to produce anything viable, if you know what I mean. I'm trying to be sensitive to YouTube here and their terms and policies. So he wouldn't be a good quality breeding animal, but there's a chance that he could still be producing a good enough amount of testosterone for some things to work. So if I banded the one, there'd still be a risk in there, and he would still be producing hormones, and that's going to affect the taste of his meat. So what we have to do, what makes the most sense to me for us to do with him right now, is actually butcher him essentially as a baby. And I don't like that. It's kind of different when they grow out of the cute stage and they're, I don't know, it's definitely different. I appreciate them and love them through all of life stages, but a baby animal, I can't even find the words, but I think most of you kind of feel the tug that I'm feeling. It's definitely different. It's definitely hard, but there's literally nothing else I can do with him. I don't have the space just to keep him here and keep him away from girls, and I don't know, it's just, it doesn't make sense to do anything with him but to process him at about 5 months old. So that's what we're doing this weekend. This is an example of some of the very hard decisions that are made when you have a homestead. It's a lot harder to deal with the things that go wrong with animals than the things that can go wrong in a garden. Gardens die every year, and a lot of times you didn't do anything to cause that. It's just part of life. It's just part of what happens. It's a lot more intentional and hands-on when you're growing animals for meat. There are decisions that you are directly responsible for making, and you want to do the right thing, not only by your animals, but the right thing, the thing that makes the most sense for you. I've talked about it in previous videos where we have a plan for a lot of our retiree does. Now, some does are going to stay here and be able to live out their life on grass, but I literally can't afford to do that for all of my does. So the most common cause of death for a dairy goat is kidding related. And so right around age 9 or 10, they can start to have problems kidding. But really, if you retire them at about that age, they can live until 15 or more. So I've got a bunch of goats that are around the same age because I've been keeping back a lot of animals because, like I said, we're trying to develop a nice herd of mini La Manchas here. A lot of them, as our herd develops, I will end up selling off in their prime anyway, but some of them, they will make it to their retiree age, and I know that I'm not going to be able to take all these senior goats out into their retirement and still maintain my breeding program here. It's just going to put too many goats in the barn, too many goats on the pasture, and overall it's not good for the goats or the pasture. So really, if we can't sell to a pat home one of these senior does, then they will probably be put in the freezer as well. And it's just things you have to think about. When you start a farm or a homestead, you have to have this like long game in mind. You have to have a plan A, you have to have a plan B, and you have to have a plan C, because things go wrong all the time on a homestead. So Maggie asked, did you grow up on a farm or a homestead? And I feel like I would have said no 5 years ago. I don't think I knew that it was pretty unusual the way that I grew up. It wasn't really unusual for the area. I grew up in a really small town in Maine. My dad kept chickens. We had horses. He had a garden that he tended, and we had a big blackberry patch next to our house that we got to pick from fresh all the time. It was an incredibly beautiful life that now that I'm grown up, I understand is quite special. And yeah, I would consider it homesteading. We home cooked with our vegetables that we grew. We ate our chicken eggs, we rode our horses, and my dad canned up the blackberry jam as well as crabapple jelly from the crabapple tree on the property. There's actually a whole farm across the street from us, and they had pigs and dogs and chickens and all kinds of stuff as well. And my sister and I got to go over there and just play on their farm as often as we wanted. And I have a lot of very fond memories growing up. And so yeah, I think I grew up homesteading, even though I didn't realize that it wasn't just what everyone did. So what drew me to the homesteading life and what keeps me doing it? Well, when my husband and I were moving here because of the military, we knew that we wanted to actually buy a house and settle here. We knew that he was going to be getting out of the military. My husband's family lives around here, and so we wanted to buy a house and settle down. Now, the only requirement that my husband had for any kind of land that we bought was that it be outside of city limits so that he could have a shooting range on his property. My husband likes to reload, and so he can do whatever he does reloading the bullets, and then he can come out and test them, and then he can go back and make some tweaks with the reloader, and then he can come out and test them instead of having to like go to the range and all that. That was his one requirement. My only requirement is that it had 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. We have 2 boys and 2 girls. I wanted them each to have like a boys' room and a girls' room, and I wanted the kids to have their own bathroom, and I wanted us to have a master bathroom. That was my only requirement. This particular property popped up for sale. It wasn't actually even listed for sale. It was something that was passed around on social media through some church friends of my sister-in-law, and I saw that it had a barn. I saw that it had a chicken coop, and I saw that it had an established garden, and at that point I was sold. I was like, yes, I can grow things and do things, and that will be so much fun. We are very blessed that I didn't have this aching and this dream for this life until it was already sort of in my back pocket, because by the time we learned that we loved the farm until closing, it was just a matter of a few months, and then we were here doing the thing. And what keeps me doing it a lot, like, oh my goodness, there's even through all of the hard stuff, we have had some very, very hard experiences. And if you'd like to see some of the hardest ones, I will list them in the description box below. Bring some tissues. It's rough. Even amongst all of that, the reward of homesteading absolutely supersedes that like by tenfold. This life is incredibly rewarding. We've been only doing it 5 years. It's not that long. There are some people that have grown up and have been doing it years and years. Tons of you that follow my channel, you grew up doing this, your grandmas did it, etc. I don't know if it's ever going to wear out, but so far it hasn't. The reward is definitely worth all of the hard work. So with that, I think I will leave you to go peruse the description box on those videos if you would like to. I would love to give you guys some encouragement to help you understand, once again, that you are not alone. Hard stuff happens, disease happens, death happens, and hard decisions have to be made. It's just part of it.